All right, what's going on? It's Justin. We are fresh off of a Reddit video, talking about what they should add for the new tanks and healers. And I have done many reaction videos of FF14, so why not do a reaction video? Let's check it out. We have 5 things that I have grown to dislike in FF14 by a YouTuber named DeployableLover. Interesting. All right. Well, let's see what this person has to say about things that he does not like in FF14.
Final Fantasy XIV is a game that we have all come to know and love over the many years that it's been out. For some people, they love the story. For some people, it's the flexibility on the many jobs that you can play on one character.
Right.
And for others, it's just, hanging around in Limsa and doing things that are definitely not questionable. Ultimately, though, the game has a lot to offer.
Yeah,
there are many reasons as to why we adore this MMO, but there also are a few things that Eorzea just makes us kind of sit back, sigh, and just kind of groan about, if I'm honest. So that's why in today's video, I want to count down the top 5
nice
things
mount, bro. That's a badass mount.
For me, I really have grown to dislike in Final Fantasy XIV. And, before anyone says it, I do love the game. This is all just for a little bit of fun, but hey-ho, let's get started. Up first at number 5 has got to be the slow-burning main story quest, and this truthfully will relate to the social aspect of the game too, and you'll see why shortly. What I've always found really funny with Final Fantasy XIV is when you're trying to explain the game or trying to get people from the outside interested to come into the circle of 14, you end up saying things like, oh, just get through the story, it really picks up later on, or just put 100
that's
hours
all we
in
can say.
and, the game really fleshes out, just get to Heaven's Ward and it really does get better. And that is truthfully half the issue. The game does get a lot better, and in my opinion, A Realm Reborn is also very good. I feel like it just gets a lot of hate where it's not necessarily warranted.
I'm not gonna pause too much, but A Realm Reborn is not bad, dude, but the thing is that it is slow as fuck, and when you get someone to play FF14 for the first time and you're trying to get them into this game where you have to pay a subscription based fee, and A Realm Reborn, people drop off fucking at Hawkeye Manor, bro. I mean, it's bad sometimes, and it is slow. It's very limited, I think. A Realm Reborn, the story, it just picks up. It's just, I don't know. You know what I mean? It's definitely not something that a new player is going to really want to stick with. But I tell people too, like you, was like, hey, stick with it. It gets better than Realm Reborn. But I say toward the end of Realm Reborn, the story picks up. You know what I mean? So yeah.
But there is absolutely truth in that statement. The game does get better, just much, much later. I would argue that depending on who you are and depending on your pacing, you would probably need to put in at least a minimum of 200 to 300 hours of story dedicated time alone to get to the most recent and relevant content. And if I'm being honest, that's probably on the basis that you're skimming over
you need at least
a lot of things
200 to 300 hours for
diving the content. Some of my main frustration with the MSQ comes from the early stuff. I mean, as much as I've said A Realm Reborn is fine, it doesn't really deserve the hate it gets, which is true. There is no denying it is a little bit of a slog. Most of the quests are just go to this person, speak to this person, hand this in, take this there, and guess what? You've just unlocked yourself a new quest to go and speak to someone else. The pacing just feels a little bit off. I feel like if you're a veteran player of 14, you'll say things like, oh, well, it's just important for the world building, soaking in the story, and well, yes, that's true, but
it is, but
no, there's the game,
there is a pacing
really
issue.
Going to care so much straight away. They just kind of want to play with you. You've invited them into the game. Why can they not play with you? It's kind of like being invited to someone's house for dinner and then you're just forced to sit on the sofa and watch them eat. It just kind of doesn't really make sense and it's a little bit weird. But yeah, going back to the social side of things, even if your friends do decide to come and join you in 14 and come and hang out, that's pretty much all you can do until they've cleared certain MSQ milestones, done certain dungeons, trials, that sort of thing.
No lie, I mean,
really do a great...
I'm pausing a minute. I'm talking this reaction video. If you don't like me talking during the video, you shouldn't be watching the reaction, baby. But no, I literally had a fucking I have friends that play FF14 IRL, and yeah, you literally can't do certain shit until you clear some MSQ milestones. So you're kind of limited on what you can do with your friends until they progress the MSQ on their own time, which makes sense because everything is Yoshi P puts the story first, right? So Makes sense, but kind of sucks at the same time.
Deal other than maybe RP with you in Limsa. There's not really a great deal for them to do other than just watch you go off and sail off into the sunset and do all the cool stuff. So yeah, the reality is for the first 300 hours,
they have to prog themselves, bro. You gotta prog.
Basically just a solo RPG, occasionally walking past your friends as they're going off to do whatever they want to do. It's not necessarily the greatest segue into a game that, you know, you've been told so many great things about. On to number 4 now.
Story comes first.
About the empty open world. Now, let's be honest, the open world in Final Fantasy XIV is gorgeous. The art direction is stunning. The music is just incredible. And the sense of wonder, it kind of stops when you realize that there's almost nothing that will really jump out to you and surprise you. The set pieces are amazing. What they've done with the game in terms of its direction is wonderful, but there's nothing really out in the open world that really urges you to take that next step, to look past the waterfall, to enter into the cave, to try and seek something else. Exploration in this game mostly boils down to just sightseeing. You're not really going to stumble onto a secret boss in the corner of a map outside of elite enemies. You know, nothing that's going to go crazy and wipe your party unless you're directly part of a hunt train, hunting down, you know, some of the toughest enemies in the game. Because the game does a very good job of introducing you to the many instances and dungeons. It's not as if you're going to just find one hidden just out in the wayside, tucked behind waterfalls like we mentioned before. You know, and as for the enemies that are wandering around the map, they do feel to some extent slightly decorative at times. As I mentioned, you have got some stronger elite enemies, and you've got the real sort of S tier hunts that you can go for, which require quite a lot of people to take down. But outside of that, the general mobs, they are just really kind of an inconvenience to even fight. I would actually argue that you could probably run through most of the zones completely naked.
Glam, bro.
And you'll be absolutely
the horse
fine.
too. You got the horse. That's badass,
there,
bro.
if I'm honest. Speaking of challenge, even the open world fates, they aren't really the most trying things. These are essentially the game's version of open world events. And they're more like minor inconveniences to kind of overcome for experience and currency. Personally, for me, I only ever really do these and gravitate towards fates if I'm really struggling with stuff to do in my downtime. Otherwise, I tend to just veer off and do other things instead. The reality is, though, with the open world, once you've unlocked flying in most of your zones, that gorgeous landscape you've spent all this time admiring, you'll just be kind of hovering over and just speeding past like it's nothing. I always think to myself, how amazing would it be if all of these areas
open world is
in
non-existent.
some way, shape, or
you just
had,
pass through that shit, bro.
Puzzles or secret walls in the form of like, you know, like Dark Souls games, you used to hit a wall and you'd be able to traverse through and find different puzzles and things going on.
No,
hidden dangerous mobs that only spawn at certain times.
I know this video's for fun, but yeah, bro, like comparing From Software to Square Enix, bro, like comparing Dark Souls to FF14, bro, it's just... Let me tell you, man, that's just not a comparison you're going to want to make. You're going to be happy. You're going to be sad. You're going to be very sad, bro. The open world, I mean, they try to put, my take on it, they try to put, like, enemies in there. You can, like, you know, you see things in the FF14 open world, but, like, yeah, there's no fucking hidden boss. There's no... And like Elden Ring, where it's like a secret dungeon you can just walk into, you know, it's a whole just like loot. They're none of that, bro. They're none of that, you know.
Difficult when it's nighttime. I know you've got to kind of account for everyone, and not everyone's super hardcore and wants the same things, but I do feel like it'd be cool to just spice it up a little. Now, number 3 on the list is something that's getting on a lot of people's nerves right now, and that's the fact that the game is technically massively multiplayer, but if I'm honest, it feels mostly single player. Final Fantasy XIV is listed as an MMORPG, and it does have a lot of MMO components, but if I'm being real with you guys, these days it's starting to feel more like a single player RPG every single time I log in. With the introduction of trusts and duty supports, you can pretty much run now almost every dungeon and trial just with NPCs instead of real people, and actually for the added story benefit and the lore that you get from the dungeons through doing the trusts, it's actually better to do it that way for the first time anyway. Now, because there isn't a great reason to go back into a lot of these normal instances outside of doing them for the first time, unless they go into a roulette, this does mean that you're essentially funneling.
So you're gonna advertise this right
instances
here, right?
Outside of
right here. Party up with friends, but then okay, so he's right. Now, the thing about it is that, like, I think the reason why they added duty support in a trust system is because when a lot of people who play this game, Yeah, I'm not trying to sound like anything by I say this. I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm not trying to sound fucked up or ugly. But some people just don't have friends to play with, or their friends play different games, and they're playing FF14 by themselves. And that's just what it is. They're not part of FC. They're just playing the solo experience. And for those particular type of players, I guess they wanted them to feel like they could just prog without no one's help and get through shit. You know what I mean? Trust systems there, and then there's do support. The problem with that being is that, yeah, you know, and then they put the story first, like I mentioned. So then, you know, you have to prog MSQ, and that's typically a single player thing. So it does feel like a single player game, you know, until you get to a dungeon. Oh, hey, you know, like I remember I put my friends like, okay, hey, you got the dungeon. Okay, cool. I'll run with you. But that's only if I catch them online when they're doing said dungeon. If not, it's back to a single player game. And they advertise part up with friends, but like with the trust and do support, it kind of makes it so that people don't have to put others. You know what I mean? Unless they're forced to, due to a certain trial or duty that doesn't support it. I don't think trial even support that shit. But due to a certain you know, dungeon that theoretically you have to run real people, then you'll do it. If not, some people just play NPCs all day. You know?
Doing them for the first time unless they go into a roulette. This does mean that you're, you know, essentially funneling a lot of the player base into a single player experience because,
in my opinion, it's not as fun.
With a bunch of
like,
random people,
you're missing out on experience.
Got more out of it in the trust system
is that a trial
with a public party who, you know, may or
you can run
may not
trials with NPCs
to watch cutscenes because I guess that's a reality. Not everyone is kind enough to wait for people to view their cutscenes. Of course, I haven't gotten that far yet. I'm in Shadowbringers MSQ, so I didn't know. If you are, you know, socially awkward, you struggle in certain situations, or maybe you just don't want to run the risk of messing up in front of people.
Nah, bro.
You know, you can find yourself, if you are that sort of person, not really getting involved in any group content for days, maybe even weeks. At this stage, you can do the MSQ alone, you can craft alone, you can gather alone, fish alone, do pretty much a majority of anything in the game.
But alone. This is an MMORPG.
You know, so if you hear people referencing, you know what I mean?
Online, there's plenty of single player JRPGs out there.
Technically a single player RPG. Well, now you'll know what we're referring to. Again, don't get me wrong, this is great for people who just want to play through the story at their own pace, but it also means that you can join an MMO and somehow never actually interact with other players unless you really, really go out of your way. Which is such a shame because I feel like social interaction in MMOs is so important and they can...
That's the thing, bro. That's the thing. There are a lot of single player games. You can play Final Fantasy 12, Final Fantasy 8, Final Fantasy 9. You can play all these games that are single player games. You can play Persona 5, Metaphor, you know, by Atlas, Clear Obscure, you know. But the whole point of this game is it's an MMORPG. I understand why people use trust system and do support. I ain't knocking it. But I think you are missing out on a core element of the game if you never play with real people. I'm going to say it. And people worry about messing up. That's life, bro. You're going to fuck up. You're going to mess up. You're going to die in a dungeon. Who gives a fuck? You know what I mean? You can't let that hold you back. I mean, it's an MMORPG for a reason. You know what I mean? That's what makes the game fun. If this game lost all aspects of, you know, if the game is turned into like everything that you have to do was just trust system and do support and no one put other people, I'm not sure I can play anymore. Because at that point, I'm paying for a single player game by myself. What's the point of that? That makes no sense to me.
Breed some of the best moments in gaming, certainly from ones that I've had from the likes of WoW Classic, where the fundamentals of the game are pretty much just built around socialization. On to topic number 2 now.
You want to be social, bro.
That has got to be the facade that you can play any job. Now, I want to preface this by saying that yes, you can play any job. However, if you do want to introduce yourself into any form of high-end content, Savage and above, you absolutely cannot just play any job. The best in slot grind for this game does not benefit anyone that is trying to play multiple jobs. Essentially, the moment that you hit max level on your job, you ultimately get to start the thrilling process of chasing best in slot gear. And by thrilling, I do mean that really it can be quite soul destroying sometimes. Now, a lot of the pre-raid gear that you're going to need to take on the higher content will come from currency turn-ins, and the currency that you'll get comes from doing your roulettes, which are basically hard cut off every week. You can only earn a certain maximum per week. What this does mean is that you're going to want to be very, very selective about the few jobs that you decide to main and make sure they fall under the same sort of housing, whether it be range DPS, physical DPS, that sort of thing. The reason for this is because the grind itself is already quite large with the currency cutoff that you've got per week. So if you can imagine, if you were trying to find best in slot gear for like a Dragoon and a Black Mage, for example, that is going to take you a lot longer because they're in two totally different subsets of gearing. Now, whilst if you did grind long enough, you could probably get best in slot for everything, but it wouldn't remain best in slot forever, because with every new patch and major updates, that best in slot, that item level gets increased every time, and thus the journey continues. So essentially, yes, you can play every single job, but in the highest form of content, the most difficult content in the game, you are definitely better off focusing on one or two particular jobs and getting the most gear, the highest item level for those two jobs, and really learning your rotations, because that's another thing.
I didn't know this. Like I said, I mean, I play this game a lot. For years, I just distracted myself. I'm on Shadowbringers, but I had the game for a very, very long time. I have a lot of classes leveled up. A lot, like I think I have like 2,000 hours of playtime, maybe 3,000. And it's funny because I used to only play one job. I used to only tank, or I used to always just be like specialized in one thing, And, a big part of FF14 is the ability to play every job one character, to be a jack of all trades, which is something I really thrive for, the jack of all trades style now in all my games I play. So he says this, damn, bro, like it kind of hits me hard because, I understand that everyone, the thing is that not everybody plays the hardest form of content, though. Not everybody plays Ultimate Savage. Not everyone does that stuff in FF14. They don't. They play to the point that they want to play at, and then they stop playing. And they play a different game, they come back when a new expansion drops. Or if they do keep playing, they do other stuff. Whatever. But to know that, like, it's a big major grind to play like the hardest of the content. I had no idea about this, gear slotting thing. Wow. Definitely eye-opening.
You can play a lot of jobs, but you may not be able to play them very well. It's better to focus on a couple that you really enjoy, nail down your rotations, get your best in slot gear, and get the most out of 14. Last on the list of things that I personally really don't like so much in 14 has to be the PvP. Now, with 14 PvP, some people love it, some people hate it, and some log in, try it once, and never touch it again.
It's not that great.
If I'm being real, it's a weird one, PvP.
You're being way nastier than me, bro. No,
like
fuck PvP, bro. I don't like PvP. You know what I mean? I'll stand on business. I don't give a fuck. What people say in the comments, but I think PvP is good for some people. I personally don't like it. I only play just to level up and get seals for it. I don't think it's anything to like, get mad over. I don't really find it very competitive for myself. And, it's just one of those things that's there for me. You know what I mean? I can play it all day, lose all day, and not give a single fuck. Because I'm still getting my experience points that I need from it, and I'm getting my currency. You know what I mean? But for people that like it, I mean, it's probably okay and good for them, But yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't like PvP in this game. I can tell, or they do because they have to. You know what I mean? So
afterthought in the game really wasn't designed around PvP, and it shows. In PvP, the whole identity of your job is kind of condensed down into this like Diet Coke version of your job, and it just kind of feels a bit odd to use. A lot of the job
Say your truth,
actions
bro.
are built into one
I 100%
button.
agree with
A
this
lot of
shit.
your attacks are really dependent on the server tick rate. Some things land, some things don't.
I
Sometimes
don't
you get
like
stunned,
it.
sometimes you don't. And really a lot
It's
of fights, if
fun,
you're one-on-one, for example,
but I don't take it
I've had
serious at
fights that
all.
have gone on for
I
about
don't know
3
if it's
minutes, no
unpopular
joke, with
opinion,
just
but I
one
just don't take it
person
so
because,
serious.
you know, you're just
I
absolutely
do
smacking
it.
the living
I try my
daylights out of
best.
each other.
I
And
don't
really,
like,
because you can heal so freely and build up your
fuck up on
shield so
purpose or
easily,
anything.
it kind of just, after a
But
while,
like,
you kind of just have a mutual
it's not
decision
really.
to just walk away from it.
It
You know,
doesn't
let's
connect
just
with
not
me.
waste our
You
time.
know what I mean?
And the only other alternative to that is that you are, you know, standing minding your own business, capturing a flag, the whole enemy team just absolutely bum rushes you, you get destroyed, or it's your
Happens all
team
the time.
doing it
Bro,
to
you get
someone
jumped
else. It
every
just
day
feels
in
like
the front
such
line.
an odd concoction. With that being said, though, I do enjoy the more condensed modes of PvP, which is Crystalline Conflict. I really do enjoy
That was
that kind
alright.
of more intimate
It's
experience.
just frontline
But
that
even
sucks.
so, with titles like WoW being the most obvious competitor out there, it does somewhat leave things to be desired. It's not quite as free-flowing and responsive
This guy's so nice,
as the
bro.
likes of
I
WoW,
said it
but in
fucking sucks
reality, I
sometimes,
guess
straight up.
PvP is there for those that want it, and it does house some pretty cool cosmetic rewards and currency rewards too.
True.
So there you guys have it, just a few things that I personally have come to...
Good video. You know, I do agree with almost all of these, and you know, I mean, they can definitely fix the pacing with MSQ, and sadly, it does seem to be leaning more toward a single player experience, and that's not good in my opinion because it's MMORPG and it's supposed to be. What they should do is they should force more people to play without the trust system when they clear something for the first time. I think if you're running for the first time, it should be real people. I think after that, you should use trust because you still want to get the experience of playing with real people while you run dungeon. I know people, oh, but Justin, you know, like, you be an asshole, you know, like, I just want to play by myself, I'm solo. I mean, I get it, but you're really missing out on an immersive experience. You know, not everybody's a dick in FF14. Not everyone's an asshole. Not everyone's going to talk shit to you. And when you die, people aren't going to berate you and, you know, down you. You know, like, people in this game are pretty helpful. They communicate. When someone dies, it's not a big deal. You know what I mean? You don't got to be afraid, you know, to tank or heal. And, oh, man, I'm going to mess up and die. Who cares? Like, really, like, who cares, bro? Like, there's more than life than just you dying and then just, like, you think that people care, but they don't. You know what I mean? Some people may do. Some people are assholes. You know what I mean? But this community is really not like that on the grand scheme of things. And they'll stop when you watch the cutscene. You know, they'll help you out with mechanics if you keep dying. There's always someone talking in the chat. It's really not that bad, bro. So, and yeah, with PvP, bro, I mean, it's kind of afterthought. I mean, Crystalline Conflict is kind of fun, but, like, I don't do it unless I have to. So, I agree with these 5 things, bro. Good video. And yeah, it's been your boy Justin. I'm out on this reaction. So, I mean, drop a comment. Do you agree with these things? Do you think these things are true? I'd love to know. Love to know.